Imagine running a Grandmaster where you're not hiding behind cover or plinking enemies from a distance, but instead you're slamming straight into the middle of the fight and everything around you just evaporates. Enemies get deleted on impact, your melee comes back instantly, and you never stop moving forward. That's exactly what this Prismatic Titan build does, because this setup delivers non-stop Consecration slams, absurd melee uptime, and insanely fast Transcendence generation that lets you chain abilities back to back with almost no downtime. This build hits unbelievably hard, has ridiculous survivability, and somehow still feels incredibly safe even in the hardest content in the game. Welcome to Insightful Gaming, and today I'm showing you a Prismatic Titan build that turns Grandmasters into a straight-up walk in the park by combining raw melee destruction with defensive tools that make you feel nearly unkillable. This is an aggressive, up-close playstyle, but it gives you everything you need to stay alive while you're wiping entire rooms off the map. If you're enjoying these endgame builds, make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more Destiny 2 content like this, and if you want to play together, run GMs, or just hang out with an awesome Destiny community, make sure to join the Discord and come play with us. For the exotic armor, this build is completely carried by Stoicism, and this is what turns Prismatic Titan into an absolute monster in Grandmasters. Stoicism rolls with Spirit of the Inmost Light and Spirit of Contact, and together, these two perks create a non-stop ability engine that never slows down. Spirit of the Inmost Light means every time you use one ability, the other two get empowered and regenerate faster, which is why your melee, grenade, and barricade are always coming back. On top of that, Spirit of Contact makes your powered melee absolutely devastating, because every Consecration slam not only deletes the target in front of you, but also calls down lightning strikes that jolt everything nearby. This turns every melee into an AoE nuke that chains damage through entire groups, clears rooms instantly, and builds Transcendence incredibly fast. The more aggressively you play, the stronger this exotic becomes, because using abilities only feeds more abilities, letting you chain slam after slam without ever running dry. Stoicism is what allows this build to feel both insanely powerful and surprisingly safe, because enemies don't get a chance to fight back when they're getting wiped out by constant melee explosions and jolt chains. For the weapons, this build is completely melee driven, so your weapons are there to support constant aggression and cover the rare moments when your abilities are cycling. For your primary weapon, we're using Praxic Blade, which fits perfectly into this up-close playstyle and lets you stay in the fight while waiting on your next Consecration slam. Since this is a melee build, Praxic Blade becomes your fallback damage option without forcing you to disengage. Your special weapon slot is a flex pick, and I'm using PSI Eterna IV here, but you can run any hard-hitting special weapon you're comfortable with depending on the activity. For your heavy weapon, we're using the Good Shout crossbow with Butterfly and Repulsor Brace. Butterfly lets you aim briefly to prime enemies for explosive final blows, which works incredibly well when enemies are grouped from your melee slams, and Repulsor Brace grants overshields when you defeat debuffed targets, adding another layer of survivability on top of an already tanky build. These weapons aren't about replacing your abilities. They're about keeping pressure on enemies and maintaining momentum while you slam through Grandmasters non-stop. For the subclass setup, we're running Prismatic Titan, and every choice here is built around non-stop Consecration slams, fast Transcendence generation, and staying alive while fighting up close. For your super, you have two great options, either Twilight Arsenal or Glacial Quake, and both work extremely well, but in this setup, I prefer Twilight Arsenal for its burst damage and room clearing potential. Your class ability is Rally Barricade, which keeps you protected while staying aggressive and also feeds into your ability loop. Your melee is Frenzied Blade, and this is a huge part of the build because it gives you 3 charges, allowing you to chain Consecration slams back to back with almost no downtime. Your grenade is Shackle Grenade, which adds extra crowd control and gives you breathing room when things get chaotic. For your aspects, we're using Consecration as the core of the build, because this is where the massive slam damage and AoE comes from, and we're pairing it with Drenger's Lash So your barricade suspends enemies, grouping them up and setting them perfectly for your next melee slam. For fragments, start with Facet of Dawn, so powered melee hits make you radiant and boost your damage. Then Facet of Hope, so having elemental buffs speeds up your class ability regeneration. Then Facet of Balance, so rapid light kills feed melee energy and darkness kills feed grenade energy. Then Facet of Sacrifice, so ability final blows while you have elemental buffs generate bonus darkness, Transcendence energy. And finally, Facet of Protection, so you gain damage resistance when surrounded, which is huge for surviving in close-range Grandmaster fights. For stats, this build wants high uptime on everything that fuels your ability loop, so your priorities are very straightforward. Focus on getting your weapon stat, grenade, and class ability to at least 100 first, since these directly support your damage output, crowd control, and survivability. Once those are covered, push your weapon stat as high as possible, ideally up to 200, to maximize your effectiveness during the brief moments you're relying on weapons between melee slams. For armor mods, the goal is to keep your melee looping non-stop, feed your grenade and barricade, and generate orbs while you're in the middle of the fight. On your helmet, run Heavy Ammo Finder, hands-on, and a siphon mod that matches the weapon you're getting most of your kills with, since hands-on gives you extra super energy from your constant powered melee kills. On your gauntlets, use Grenade Kickstart to help keep Shackle Grenade available, bolstering detonation so grenade damage feeds your barricade energy, and Focusing Strike so powered melee damage refunds class ability energy and keeps Drenger's Lash cycling. For your chest piece, this is activity dependent, so slot whatever resist mods make sense for the Grandmaster you're running, prioritizing survivability since you're playing up close. On your leg armor, run Innovation, Invigoration, and Insulation. So picking up orbs feeds your grenade, melee, and class ability all at once, keeping your ability loop flowing smoothly. On your Titan mark, use Bomber, Outreach, and Reaper. So casting your barricade refunds grenade energy, powered melee kills refund melee energy, and your first weapon kill after using your class ability generates an orb to keep everything tied together. For seasonal artifact mods, just like the last build, this setup doesn't depend on the artifact to function, which makes it incredibly consistent and future-proof. Your top priority is simply slotting the correct anti-champion mods for the activity you're running so you're always covered in Grandmasters. Beyond that, you can lean into elemental perks that complement your loadout, grabbing void perks toward the bottom for extra survivability and weapon synergy, or arc perks toward the top if they benefit your weapons or melee flow. None of these are required for the build to pop off, because your damage, survivability, and Transcendence generation all come from your abilities and exotic, not the artifact. To wrap it up, this Prismatic Titan build is pure power. You're slamming non-stop, deleting entire rooms, building Transcendence at an absurd rate, and staying tanky enough to play aggressively even in Grandmasters. If you want a build that feels fast, explosive, and nearly unkillable while turning endgame PvE into a breeze, this is absolutely the one to run. If you want to play together, run GMs, or be part of an awesome Destiny community, make sure to join the Discord. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one here on Insightful Gaming.